Alright guys, just gonna do it this way then. Here's the general idea. This right here is my old one that was made. 1.5 inches. Not quite sure how long this is. There's ants all over it. That's that. And this is what I did. Right here. Piece of, I do believe it's 1/2 inch rebar. I'm gonna sharpen that point a little bit, but about a 2-foot piece of foot piece. It's a 2-foot joint. Foot piece of PVC. 2 hose clamps. 1/2 inch rebar. About 2 foot of 1/2 inch rebar. Sticking about 9 inches up on that piece of they're about 6 inches on that piece of pipe. It'll fit lovely down in the hole of my standard. Sit down. Anyway, here we go. Now, granted, everything you're going to see in here is not going to be OSHA specs, okay? It's just not going to be. But this is the general idea, okay? This is already cut because I've already made the first one. These 2 rod holders cost me 25 bucks. But I guarantee you, even if the PVC does break off, these are overkill. Probably double. They're probably half the size of probably one's half this size would work. Inch ones that go down to 1 inch, and probably the ones that go down to 2 inch would work. These go down to, these started out at 3, and I think they went down to 2, something around those lines. Anyway, this is not required. This is what you need: a piece of 1/2 inch rebar or 1/4 inch rebar, whatever you want to. I think this is actually 3/8. I don't think this is 1/2 inch. But it's a 4-foot section. I cut it in half. It's way cheaper if you buy the short ones. I just bought it because I had the tools to cut it in half and didn't have to worry about it. 1 foot piece of 1.5 inch PVC. You can take this up or down sizes, however you need to get it to work. All of my rods, all of my catfish rods, 2 of them. 2 of my catfish rods have to be in holders like this. And I prefer these because they're a little bit more durable than the little El Cheapos you get from Walmart, the little corkscrew ones. We shove them down on the ground and they got a corkscrew like springy thing on them. These are a little more rigid. It sets the hook a little better on circle hooks. Anyway, what I just did off camera was I took the grinder. This isn't required, but a little slit up through there to kind of hold the, I don't think it's required anyway. If you're using clamps, it will probably be a good idea. But anyway, all you do is take, and all your rebar has a little slot on it. I don't think it's required, but all your rebar has this little piece where they form it. Just kind of lay that in the groove is what I'm doing. This is my first attempt at making these, so definitely be a learning curve. But definitely be a bit of a learning curve. Just kind of, and it helps with 2 people, but it doesn't have to have 2 people. I can do it by myself, so means you guys ought to be able to. With 1 person. Now, that's what I did that time. Bend this back. You can grind it off in a second because that's a little long for me. If you get shorter clamps, that won't be an issue. You're just eyeballing all these measurements. I did. Yeah. Make sure your clamps are pulling opposite directions. It'll help you keep everything tight. Common sense. It's no big deal if they're not turned separate directions. It just help. It basically makes them act against each other. Just makes them act against each other. One's pulling one way, one's pulling another. Impact not required, by the way. It's just what I'm using because it's quick. You can do it by hand, it doesn't matter. we go. And there's your finished rod holder. And it took me 5 minutes yapping. So if you get down to business with it, you can probably get them done pretty quick. Depends on how quick you are at working with your hands and everything. Not recommended. Right there. Told you, you got a little extra shit right here. You got 2 rod holders that will definitely work. Will not have an issue doing what you need them to do. Like I said, they're relatively cheap. Not as cheap as the aluminum one that was made that I found. I have priced to make those. They are cheaper than this. But after what I dealt with that, if you got rocky ground, or if you're driving that into the ground, if it's not like going in just perfect, you're gonna bend that aluminum angle every single time. So I'm gonna try these. I've never tried one with rebar, but I'm sure it'll be the same as a trap stake. I've made a bunch of them on my channel before, and they've all worked flawlessly. So this is my idea this year. We're gonna give it a shot and see how it holds up, and seems like it's gonna be pretty sturdy. Let's see if they can hold up to being thrown around, lammed around in the truck, and all that. And we'll sharpen these ends a smidge to get a little bit of a grind on them to where they go in. It's not just a blunt point, just jabbing into the ground. Give it a little bit of advantage. I think that's what the issue with this one was the fact that it was basically just a blunt triangular point. There's no angle to that other than the angle it's got that way. So I think that might have been one of the flaws with it. That and the fact that I was just basically driving it into the ground. And they run that aluminum all the way to the top on theirs, and I didn't quite like that setup. I was going to run these clamps inside the pipe, and I realized, nah, because I'm going to have a rod in there, and I'm going to go to jerk that rod out because I got a massive fish, and I'm wanting to make sure I don't lose that fish. Shit's going to go wrong, and then I'm going to rip the handle up on one of my reels. I do have a little modification I'm going to make to these at some point. I don't know when, but at some point I'm going to make it. It's going to be a bait cut station on this. That will, on one of these, I don't know which one, just one of these. And it'll just basically either sit down here and be clamped to it, or it'll sit down over top of this with another kind of sleeve and with a little cutting board, little Dollar Tree cutting board. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but here's for hoping. So, yeah, I'm going to sharpen these ends up, and I'll see y'all tomorrow night on the riverbank, or lake bank. Yeah, there you got it, guys. There's my idea of a homemade rod holder, and one that should hold up quite well because the one I used to have was amazing. I had one prior to the one I found, and just hadn't had a chance to make another one yet. So, yeah, there's an idea, guys. Run with it.